Part 5 of the analysis. The lady is now in a bathroom and she is surveying her injuries. We can see that she has the eye injury, a cut lip. Her nose has now stopped bleeding, but we can see the finger marks on the side of her neck, which she then touches. It's likely also that this individual is physically abusing her, and whilst the filmmakers have utilised the equivalent of emotional abuse with that of physical abuse, the fact is it's likely that she also sustains physical abuse from this individual. We then see that a text message arrives, and of course this is the hoovering. The hoovering is whereby the narcissist seeks to assert control over the victim, here the intimate partner primary source. She has come up on the radar, and therefore his narcissism has subconsciously asked this question: is she under control, yes or no? Given the fact that she's not there, and he has no information about what she's doing, it's therefore assumed she's not under control. His narcissism must abide by the first law of narcissism, which is all appliances must be brought under control and kept under control. And therefore his narcissism motivates him with making him feel a particular way and think a particular way to cause him to contact her. He's easily able to contact her because he has her telephone number, and therefore he sends a text message. The Hoover is designed to directly assert control over her and potentially draw fuel also. He writes, "I'm sorry, Macy, you just push my buttons." It's not genuine contrition. It's false because it's coming from a narcissist, but moreover, of course, it contains a condition, namely, it's actually your fault. You made me do it. You push my buttons. So there's blame shifting. She doesn't respond. Therefore, the failure to respond to that text message wounds him mildly. The reason that it's mild is because the response that he would require would be in writing, and therefore would only be a small amount of fuel. There's a further follow-up Hoover. "If you hadn't have acted like this, I wouldn't have said those things." Leaving aside his poor grammar, the fact is this is once again blame shifting. You made me insult you. She pushes the phone away. Her failure to respond again wounds him. There's another follow-up Hoover. "You're being way too sensitive." Blame shifting, provocation. "I did something nice for you and you have just thrown it back in my face." Blame shifting, provocation, another follow-up Hoover. Those of you who have been involved with the narcissist will be familiar with these kind of comments. He's moved from supposed contrition to now moving into being more aggressive, as he states, "There's something seriously wrong with you. You're actually crazy." And therefore, there's not only blame shifting, but labelling and insult. The phone then rings. The name is Mark, and we assume that's the name of the man, the boyfriend, as he then shifts from a text Hoover to a telephone call Hoover. She rejects the call. That will wound him again and threaten his sense of control, and the extent of the wounding will be more than a text message because he was expecting to hear her speak. She still remains on the radar. He doesn't have control over her. And he then texts her again with a follow-up Hoover, "Why are you ignoring me?" Of course, it's obvious why she's ignoring him, because he's abusing her, but his narcissism will not allow that to be the case because he can do no wrong. He then moves to another text follow-up Hoover, "You are an ugly person, Macy," thus insulting her. This prompts her to write, "You are ugly," on the mirror as a consequence of the way that she's being made to feel. But very quickly, she wipes that away, and of course, doubtless as the optimistic message that's been provided by the filmmakers, it is replaced with the observation, "He is ugly." It then provides instances of emotional abuse that take place, and then explains that 48% of men and women have experienced at least one or more form of emotional abuse. Of course, not all of that emotional abuse will come from narcissists. It can, of course, come from normal individuals. However, as you know from my work, repeated abusive behaviours, be it sexual, physical, financial, emotional, psychological, is the hallmark of a narcissist's behaviour. Here, we had a very good representation, albeit just in a few minutes, of the way that a narcissist behaves towards his victim. Here, the intimate partner primary source. He is dismissive of her. He provokes her. He blame shifts. He's nasty towards her. He insults her. And ultimately, he walks off from the dinner, asserting control by withdrawal, leaving her on her own and upset on what's meant to be a special occasion. He repeatedly suggests that she's the one that is to blame. He suggests that she's paranoid. He gaslights her. All of this, of course, remember, is being done instinctively by his narcissism. Although we don't have a huge amount of information about this individual, we know that he's a narcissist because this film has been created to show an abuser in action. And therefore, we have that information. And as a consequence, we are able to interpret everything that has taken place in this short film through that prism of narcissism. What about the school and cadre of this individual? Well, as mentioned, we don't have a huge amount of information to work on. It's likely with regard to cadre that he would be somatic. He likes to go out, go to a nice restaurant. He's fairly well groomed. He's clean. His clothing is okay. He's not dressed over the top. He's in shape. His girlfriend is good looking and attractive, which also suggests he may well be somatic. And therefore, he doesn't come across as a particularly cerebral individual. There's a possibility he could be an elite. He will have the victim mentality of all narcissists, but I don't see that he is rampant with victim behaviours. For instance, there wasn't a lot of pleading or wanting to be mothered, etc. And therefore, in those circumstances, I would suggest that the behaviours that he's exhibiting are more akin to that of a somatic. Of course, ultimately, we would need more information about his life and lifestyle. What about his school? The behaviours are instinctive here. And he doesn't exhibit the charm that a greater would do. A greater would use charm first before moving to the more threatening and aggressive behaviours that are being exhibited. And therefore we can discount greater from this analysis. Also, of course, as you know, greater narcissists are very rare. This leaves us with mid-range and lesser. He manages to keep a hold on his ignited fury. There isn't an instance of smashing a glass or tipping the table over or suddenly shouting at her, which moves us away from lesser. He does appear to manage a facade because he always behaves himself when the waiter is there. And whilst at one instance he's a little bit rude with regard to saying whatever she will have, he doesn't go batshit in front of the waiter, which suggests that this is an individual who does operate a facade. We don't know his level of cognitive function. I don't think it's the highest, but I don't think it's the lowest. We replace him in a moderate level in that regard. He engages in the blame shifting and the mid-range behaviours of I've done something nice and you've thrown it back in my face. Don't spoil this. And therefore holds himself out essentially as being a decent person. The manner of his manipulations are relatively subtle. He doesn't reach across the table and grab her. He doesn't keep insulting her using nasty words, saying, you fucking cunt, etc. Instead, it's more subtle with regard to the way he talks about her pushing the buttons and asking, why do you always do this? Why do you always cause a fight? Therefore, he does have a moderate threshold over his ignited fury. Furthermore, we see that it's seeking to come through, but it is kept in place. He utilises the stare, a cold, baleful look, repeatedly, which is another hallmark of a mid-range narcissist. So accordingly, one wouldn't see him as being a lesser because there isn't the explosive heated fury, there isn't a low threshold on that ignited fury, he doesn't engage in out-and-out obvious behaviours, he doesn't resort here to physical violence. And therefore, he doesn't appear either to have low cognitive function, and other indicators of the lesser are not being demonstrated in this instance. However, he does appear to utilize physical violence. There's a suggestion of that that's hinted at with regard to the injuries that are shown as an analogy for the emotional abuse that's taking place. And whilst this video is directed to undertake emotional abuse, it may well be the case here that he's the type of individual that does engage in physical abuse. And also, you can see the aggression lurking under the surface. It's not far away. There's no waterworks from him. There's no out-and-out pleading from him. He is quite aggressive in the way that he speaks to her. Firm, dismissive, brusque. And I would say that ultimately, he lacks the out-and-out charm and polish of an upper mid-range narcissist. He isn't the crybaby who thinks the world is against him, the universe is cursed in middle mid-range B. He's certainly not overly helpful either. He doesn't operate a facade of being helpful and kind with middle mid-range A. And I would suggest that this individual is an amalgam of both lesser and mid-range, making him lower mid-range. Because he operates an intermittent facade, that would place him within the mid-range category, along with level of cognitive function and the form of manipulations and the threshold of control that he has over his ignited fury. Of course, we would welcome more information to fine-tune it. Based upon what I see there, this individual is clearly a narcissist and is lower mid-range somatic. I trust all of that information has helped you. Please do ensure that you like this video, that you share the series to other people as an excellent opportunity to understand more about narcissism in action. And if you'd like to show your appreciation for this work, then of course do show super thanks. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.